I want to start with something that might sound a little uncomfortable, but it's important. Most people who ask, do I need a PMP or a certification to become a project manager, are actually asking the wrong question. The real question is not, do I need a PMP? The real question is, what problem am I trying to solve by getting a PMP? Because here's what I see happen all the time. Smart, capable people spend months, sometimes years chasing certifications, thinking that once they get the letters on their resume that everything's going to click into place and they're going to become a successful project manager. And then they finish their certification and nothing really changes. Interviews still feel awkward. They still struggle to explain real project situations, and they still don't feel confident in themselves calling themselves a project manager. They feel like a fraud. And that doesn't usually mean that certifications are useless. It just means that they're being used for the wrong job. So in this video, I want to break this down very clearly. When certifications actually help, when they don't, and what most people should be focusing on before they even think about getting a PMP. Hi, my name is Eddie. I've been an IT project manager for the last 8+ years, made over $300,000 in a single year working remotely from places like Medellin, Colombia, Cusco, Peru, and Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I've done it all without a PMP certification. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So when someone asks me whether they need a PMP or a certification to become a project manager, it almost always comes from one or two places. And before I explain, either one of them is wrong. They're just different situations. The first type of person is trying to break into project management. They're not officially a project manager yet. They might be a coordinator, an analyst, or some type of ops role, or IT support, business role, or something adjacent to that. And they know they want to move into PM work, but they don't feel confident yet. So PMP feels like a clean solution. It feels like structured, it feels respected, feels logical. It feels like, hey, if I just get this, then companies will take me seriously and see me as a project manager. The second type of person is already working close to projects. Maybe they're already doing PM work without the title. Maybe they're managing vendors, timelines, or deliverables. Maybe they've been on a few projects or a few real projects before and now want to level up. And for them, PMP feels like a credibility boost. Something that says, hey, I'm not new to project management. I've done this before. Look, I've got a certificate as well. The problem is these two types of people often get the same advice. They're both told, just get the PMP. But these two situations are completely different. And when you give the same advice to both people, one of them usually wastes a lot of time and a lot of money. So before you even ask whether the PMP is worth it, you should be honest about which bucket you're actually in. Are you trying to become a project manager, or are you already close to the work and trying to strengthen your position? So before we talk about whether PMP is worth it, we need to be clear about what it actually is, because a lot of people treat the PMP like it's some kind of career upgrade button. It's not. In very simple terms, PMP is two things. First, it's standardized body of knowledge, and it teaches a common way to talk about project management, like scope, schedule, risk, stakeholders, change, all of that. And then second, it's a credibility signal. It tells employers, hey, this person has been exposed to the formal language of project management and passed a structured exam. That's it. PMP does not teach you how to handle real pressure. It does not teach you how to deal with messy stakeholders. It does not teach you how to actually make decisions when there's no good options. Yes, it teaches you the framework, and frameworks are useful, but they're not the same thing as experience. A good way to think about PMP is this. It's like learning the rules of a sport and the official terminology. That helps you understand what's happening in the game, but it doesn't mean you've played enough games to stay calm when things get hectic or chaotic. So when people ask, does PMP make you a project manager? The honest answer is no. What it can do is make you easier to evaluate. It can make you potentially a good candidate, especially if you already have some real project exposure. So now that we're clear on what PMP actually is, let's talk about what a PMP certification or certification in general can do, because they're not all useless. When certifications help, they're usually helping you in three very specific ways. The first benefit is in filtering. Some companies, especially larger ones or more traditional ones, PMP helps get you past an initial screen or an automatic screen. Not because it proves you're a great project manager, but because it tells the company, hey, this person meets a certain level of baseline. And so if you're applying to companies like that, PMP can reduce friction early on in the process and help you get an interview. The second benefit is structured learning. For a lot of people, PMP forces you to organize what you already kind of know. It gives names to things, it puts structure around ideas that were previously fuzzy to you. And that can be genuinely helpful, especially if you're already close to real projects and need a cleaner mental model to think about kind of the work from a project manager's lens. The third benefit is confidence with language. PMP gives you a shared vocabulary. You're less likely to freeze in conversations because You recognize the terms being used in that conversation or in that meeting. That doesn't mean you suddenly know what to do in every situation, but it can make you more comfortable participating in discussions in those situations. Those are real benefits, but here's the important part that you should know. All three of those benefits only matter if you already have exposure, some kind of exposure to real project work. Without that exposure, certifications tend to feel impressive on paper, but very fragile in practice. And this is the part that trips people up. It's nobody's fault because the messaging around certifications is honestly a bit misleading. Certifications cannot give you decision-making experience. They can't give you reps. They can't give you real pressure. And they definitely can't give you stories. Let me explain what I mean by that. In a project management interview, you're almost never asked theoretical questions. You're asked things like, hey, tell me about a time when scope changed unexpectedly. Tell me about a project that didn't go as planned. How did you handle conflicting stakeholders? Those aren't knowledge questions. Those are experience questions. Someone who studied project management answered those questions by explaining what should happen. They say things like, well, according to best practice, I would XYZ. Someone who's been inside real projects answers completely differently. They say what actually happened, what decisions they made, what trade-offs they had to accept. That difference is immediately obvious to the interviewer or hiring manager. And this is where a lot of people feel confused and frustrated. They think, I did everything right. I studied, I got certified. Why did this still feel so hard? Why can't I get a job? The answer is simple. It's because certifications were never designed to create judgment or help give you judgment. They give you language, they give you structure, but judgment only comes from being inside situations where there isn't a perfect answer. That's the gap that most people don't realize that they're missing. So now let's answer the question that most people probably care about. When does it make sense to get a PMP? There are actually a few very clear situations where a PMP is a good move. The first situation is when you're already working close to projects or as a project manager. Maybe you're a coordinator, maybe you're in operations, IT, or a business role. Maybe you're already dealing with timelines, vendors, and stakeholders. And in that case, PMP can help you organize what you already know, what you already are experiencing. It gives you structure to things you've seen in real life. And the second situation is when you're targeting companies or industries that clearly care about PMP. Certain large enterprises, government roles, or some consulting environments value it a lot. But remember, just because the role says PMP preferred does not mean it is a hard requirement. And I am living proof that you can get a very high-paying PM job without a PMP. The third situation is when you feel like you've hit a ceiling. You're already functioning like a project manager, but you're not being recognized as one yet. In that case, PMP can act as a sign that says, hey, I'm not new to this. I've been doing the work already. And then the fourth situation, simple, it's when your employer is paying for it, right? If a company wants you to get the PMP and they're covering the cost and the time that you'll be away studying for it, that's usually a no-brainer. In all of these cases, PMP works best as an amplifier. It amplifies experience that you already have. It does not create experience from scratch. So now let's talk about the situation where PMP usually is not the right move. The first situation is when you don't have real project stories yet. If you struggle to answer basic interview questions like, hey, tell me about a project that you worked on, or tell me about a time something went wrong on your project. PMP isn't going to fix that. It might help you talk more fluently, but it won't give you anything real to talk about during interviews. The second situation is when PMP is being used to avoid uncertainty. This is very common, and I want to be honest about it. Certifications feel safe. They are clear. You know exactly what to study, and when you're done, you're done. Getting closer to real project work, however, feels messy. It's uncomfortable. It's like, where do you start? How do you even do that? So I really want you to think about this for a second. If PMP feels appealing to you simply because it lets you delay that discomfort of actually being around project work, that's usually a sign it's being used the wrong way and at the wrong time. The third situation is when you're hoping PMP will make you feel ready to become a project manager. Readiness doesn't come from passing an exam. It comes from seeing how things actually play out in the real world, how plans change, how people react, how decisions are made under pressure. And then the fourth situation is when you don't yet have clarity on the role you're aiming for. If you're still figuring out what kind of project work you want to do or what kind of environment you want to be in, PMP can lock you into a mental model too early on. In all of these cases, PMP isn't harmful, it's just premature. So if PMP isn't the first move for most people, then what is? The better approach is much simpler than people expect. Instead of asking what certification should I get next, ask what would give me real exposure to how projects actually work. For most people, the right order looks something like this. First, get close to real projects. That can mean sitting in meetings, helping with deliverables, supporting timelines, or coordinating tasks for your project manager. You don't need a title for this, you just need proximity. Number two is building real artifacts, not templates that you've never used, but documents that actually change as the project changes or continues. Project charters, project plans, risk logs, status updates. These are what give you something real to talk about later on in interviews. And then number three, they let their judgment develop. So once you've seen a few projects unfold, conversations start to feel much easier. You recognize patterns, you understand why decisions were made the way they were on the project. And then if you choose to get a PMP, it actually works the way people expect it to. It reinforces what you've already experienced. That order, exposure first, certifications later, is what keeps people from feeling stuck and disappointed. So to wrap this up, the question isn't really whether PMP or certifications are good or bad. The real question is whether you're using them for the right job and at the right time. Certifications can help you once you're already close to real project work. They can help with language, they can help with structure, they can help signal your credibility to employers, but they don't replace exposure. They don't replace judgment. And they don't replace being around real projects while they're happening. If you're early in the process, the most important thing isn't collecting credentials. It's getting close to the work, seeing how projects actually move, watching how decisions are actually made, building things that change over time, like the documents that you use on a project. And once that starts to happen, everything else gets much easier. Interviews feel more natural, conversations feel less forced. And certifications, if you choose to pursue them, actually start to make sense at that point. So instead of asking, do I need a PMP? Ask, am I close enough to real project work right now for this to actually help me? If you answer that question very honestly, the next step usually becomes very obvious. Now, with that being said, if you feel like you need to get close to real project work, I invite you to click the link below and step inside our live PMO environment where we have active projects running all the time, where you can get real exposure and see real workflows and see how projects actually move inside companies. And if nothing else, hopefully this video has helped you make a decision on whether to pursue the PMP or not. And if you did like this video did help you, give me a like, subscribe to my channel, it really means a lot. And if nothing else, I'll see you on the next one.